A saint's search for the Ganga's birth. One of the greatest pilgrimages in history was undertaken by Lord Swaminarayan, head of the Swaminarayan faith, exactly 4 centuries ago. When he was only 11 years old, he assumed the name of Neelkant Varni and travelled alone to Kailash Mansarovar from Rishikesh. His journey, undertaken barefoot and wearing only a loincloth, with no possessions whatsoever, is an epic journey of courage, faith and divine grace. After meditating in Mansarovar for 6 months, Neelkant returned to Badrinath, from where he embarked on another pilgrimage to Gangotri, the source of Mother Ganga, which lies at 10,000 ft in the Himalayas. Neelkant left Rishikesh on September 16, 1792 and passed Devrayag, Rudraprayag, Gupta Kashi, Triyuginarayan and Gaurikund until he reached Kedarnath. The Sri Haricharithramrit Sagar records Neelkant's journey. Though the road to Kedarnath is the same today, in Neelkant's time, it was a brutal odyssey, taken under extremely harsh conditions. Neelkant avoided the 2 existing routes and chartered one of his own. Sri Haricharithramrit Sagar notes, in the Himalayas at Kedarnath there is a big mandir of Mahadev. Brahmachari, Neelkant took the direction behind Kedarnath towards Badrinath. He reached Badrinath after 9 days. He avoided Ukhimat, Gopeshwar and Joshimat and instead went around the mountain behind Kedarnath towards Badrinath. Mount Kedarnath is north of Kedarnath and Neelkant had circumnavigated the mountain to reach his destination. He would have crossed the Chodabari and Dudganga glaciers, then passing through the Kirti glacier ahead and another glacier in a valley between Mount Kedarnath and Mount Meru. The Gangotri glacier comes after these. Neelkant would have crossed it and reached the valley of the Bhagirath mountain range to reach Nandanvan. Then he would have crossed the Chaturangi glacier and the subsequent Kalindi Ghat and reached the valley where the Arwa river flows on the Arwa glacier. The Arwa merges into the Alaknanda river and 11.5 km south lies Badrinath. So perilous was the terrain that it took Neelkant 9 days to travel 125 km over 7 glaciers, around 9 to 12 km a day. After Neelkant returned to Badrinath from Mansarovar on May 13, 1793, his next pilgrimage was to Gangotri. Reaching the Gangotri glacier, he travelled towards the source of the river Ganga at Gomukh and then on to Gangotri. Crossing the Kalindi Ghat at 19,567 ft is one of the most dangerous of Himalayan endeavours. The Ganga's mystique has challenged explorers and pilgrims who made it their mission to reach its source. 4 centuries ago, the Emperor Akbar sent out a team of explorers to Gangotri. Swedish explorer Sven Hedin, author of Trans-Himalaya, writes, the envoys, sent by King Akbar at the end of the 16th century, saw the water of the river, Ganga, gush out in great abundance in a ravine under a mountain which resembled a cow's head. English explorers who followed supported this information as correct. The famous 19th century writer T.N. Colebrooke writes in his 1812 research paper, on the sources of the Ganges in the Himadri or Amodus that the source of the river Ganga was an obsession with explorers, many of whom died trying to reach it. Until the beginning of the 19th century, not one of them was successful. The modern mountaineer with all the equipment and medicines at his disposal finds the 21-kilometer journey from Gomukh to Gangotri a trial in courage. The Ganga is believed to emerge from Lord Shiva's head. The Matsya Puran says, Bhagirathi Ganga flows from Lake Mando which lies in the valley of Mount Kailash, ch. 214. In Kalidas's Meghdut Purva Megh 65, it is written that the Ganga surges forth from Mount Kailash. This is the reason many Hindu pilgrims travel to Mount Kailash or Mansarovar, braving nature's obstacles. Even the map of Tibet, made by French traveler Danville in 1733, called Carte Générale du Tibet, shows that the Ganges issues from Mansarovar. The renowned monk Purangir went to Gangotri in his search for the source of Ganga, believing that Ganges was born in Kailash and flowed from there to Mansarovar. Hidden notes: the source of the Ganges was discovered in 1808 by an expedition led by Lieutenant Webb and the captains Raper and Hasi. They crossed over Mana Pass to Saparang but did not know they had passed the source of the Ganges. The instructions given to Lieutenant Webb by the Supreme Government of Bengal say to ascertain whether this, i.e. the cascade or subterraneous passage at Gangotri, be the ultimate source of the Ganges, and in case it should prove otherwise, to trace the river, by survey, as far towards its genuine source as possible. To learn, in particular, whether, as stated by Major Renal, it arises from the lake Manasarovar, and, should evidence be obtained confirming his account, to get, as nearly as practicable, the bearing and distance of that lake. 15 years before Webb, the child monk Nilkant had reached the source of the Ganga alone. His path from Badrinath to Gangotri is the path to the source of the river Ganga, Gomukh, a god shaped like a cow's mouth, 21 km east of Gangotri. But the 18th century Jesuit Joseph Tiefenthaler wrote that the source will never be discovered because the way beyond the gorge of the Gomukh is impassable. But Nilkant, wearing only a loincloth, had crossed Gomukh and walked back from the Ganga's source, all the way along its banks to Haridwar. The journey was the first step that forged the mystical spirit of Swaminarayan. It was undertaken to discover the answers to the following questions. What is Jiva? What is Ishvara? What is Maya? What is Brahman? What is Para Brahman? On this journey, Nilkant was taught the eightfold Ashtanga Yoga by Gopal Yogi, working miracles on the way. In 1799, Nilkant ended his trip at Loj, a village in Gujarat. It was here that his questions were answered by Muktanand Swami, a disciple of Ramanand Swami, who he met a few months later. Ramanand initiated Nilkant and renamed him as Sajanand Swami and Narayan Muni. He was made Ramanand's successor after the master's death and gave his followers the Swaminarayan mantra for their rituals, which even had the power to send many devotees into Samadhi. The essence of his teaching is practiced by his followers still, that anyone can attain moksha and that the soul has no gender and all are equal in the eyes of God. Information sourced from Swaminarayan Sanstha.